A shattered glass jar of cranberry sauce was leaking red across the polished tiles of aisle 4, looking unnaturally like blood against the bright fluorescent lights of Walmart. Over the tinny store speakers, a cheerful jazz version of Home for the Holidays was playing, completely out of sync with the suffocating silence that had just fallen between us. 20 years. 7,300 days of convincing myself that the past belonged in the graveyard of my youth. And yet, here she stood, holding a crumpled paper list, her chestnut hair now woven with delicate threads of silver, her hazel eyes wide with a mixture of terror and absolute recognition. "Daniel?" Her voice drifted across the aisle, barely above a whisper, yet it hit my chest with the force of a freight train. I couldn't move. My fingers were frozen around the handle of my plastic shopping basket, holding a single frozen turkey breast and a package of instant gravy. But what truly stopped my heart wasn't just the phantom from my past standing 10 feet away. It was the tall, broad-shouldered young man stepping up beside her, wearing a faded Iowa State hoodie, the exact same jacket I had worn 2 decades ago. He looked down at the mess on the floor, then raised his head, looking straight at me. I wasn't looking at a stranger. I was looking at a ghost of my 20-year-old self. Same sharp jawline, same cleft in the chin, and the undeniable, distinct storm gray eyes that had been passed down through 3 generations of Brooks men. I thought my life had ended 3 years ago when the silence of cancer took my wife. I thought I had no one left in this world. But as that young man looked at me with my own eyes, I realized my entire life wasn't just empty. It was built on a monstrous 20-year-old lie. My name is Daniel Brooks. I'm 42 years old, and if you saw me on the street in Des Moines, you wouldn't look twice. Just a commercial electrician with calloused hands, boots permanently stained with dry drywall dust, and a quiet mortgage on a 2-bedroom house that feels far too large for one person. For the past 3 years, November 25th wasn't a holiday for me. It was just a day off I had to survive. Ever since Sarah passed away after a long, brutal battle with breast cancer, the silence in my home had become a physical weight. We never had kids. The doctors said it wasn't in the cards for us. So while my crew at the job site talked for weeks about turkey recipes, visiting in-laws, and chaotic family dinners, I spent my weeks nodding along, politely declining every generous invitation to join their tables. Pity is a bitter condiment, and I preferred eating my loneliness alone. This Thanksgiving morning was supposed to be routine. Wake up at 5, check the fuse box on the porch, realize the fridge had nothing but stale coffee and expired eggs, and drive down to the 24-hour Walmart before the snowstorm hit. Grab something easy, head back home, watch football on mute, and let the day slip into memory. The store parking lot was a war zone of minivans, rushing mothers, and squabbling children. Inside, the aisles smelled of cinnamon brooms, artificial pine, and freshly baked pumpkin pies. Families were arguing over cans of pumpkin puree, laughing, bumping carts. I kept my head down, navigating my basket through the crowded grocery section, trying my best to stay invisible. Then, right near the baking supplies, I heard it. A laugh. It wasn't loud, but it had a distinct melodic lilt, a soft, breathy cadence that ended in a tiny, musical hiccup. A sound I hadn't heard in 2 decades, yet my brain identified it instantly, pulling me back to warm summer nights by the Skunk River, sitting on the hood of my beat-up Ford pickup. I stopped dead in my tracks. My brain told me I was losing my mind, suffering from holiday-induced delirium. I turned slowly around the display of sweet potatoes, expecting to see a stranger. It was Emily Carter, the girl who had held my heart in her hands when we were 21, before pride, poverty, and her overbearing father tore us apart. She was reaching up to help an elderly woman pull a box of stuffing from the top shelf. Her chestnut hair was shorter now, styled in a practical bob, dusted with elegant streaks of silver at the temples. She wore a simple navy blue sweater, the sleeves pulled over her palms, a habit she always had when she was nervous or cold. Time had written lines around her eyes, but those eyes were still the same brilliant hazel that used to make me forget my own name. "Here you go, sweetie," Emily said to the older woman, her voice hitting me like a physical punch to the chest. Before I could process the surge of memory flooding my brain, a voice cut through the background noise of the store. "Mom, I found the dinner rolls, but they're out of the sourdough you like." A young man pushed a half-full cart into the aisle. He looked to be about 19 or 20. He was tall, easily 6'2", with broad shoulders that slouched just slightly, hands shoved into the pockets of an old gray Iowa State hoodie. Emily turned to him with a warm, indulgent smile. "Did you check the bottom shelves, Elijah? You always skip the bottom shelves." "I checked, Mom. I'm not 5 anymore." He chuckled. He threw his head back as he laughed, and my breath hitched. It was a mirror. I wasn't looking at a stranger's kid. I was looking at an exact, terrifying photographic copy of myself at 20 years old. The high cheekbones, the slight crookedness in the nose where I'd taken a baseball to the face in middle school, the exact wave in his dark hair, and those eyes. Storm gray, framed by thick, dark lashes. My pulse began to hammer violently in my ears. The sound of shopping carts, the store music, the chatter of customers, all of it faded into a dull, underwater roar. Coincidence? My logical mind tried to scream. People look alike all the time. America is huge. It's just a random resemblance. Then the boy turned his head and caught me staring. He didn't look angry, he looked confused, his eyebrows knitting together in a very specific asymmetrical furrow, the exact face my father used to make when a wire crossed wrong. Emily noticed his distraction. "Elijah, what's wrong?" She followed his gaze. Her eyes met mine. The smile evaporated from her lips as if it had never existed. All the color drained from her cheeks, leaving her skin paper white. The glass jar of cranberry sauce she was holding slipped through her limp fingers, dropping straight down and shattering against the hard floor. Red syrup and glass sprayed across her boots, but she didn't even flinch. She couldn't take her eyes off me. "Daniel?" she breathed out. "Hi, Emily," I managed to say, my throat feeling like sandpaper. 20 years of silence, crushed into 2 terrible, fragile words. Elijah looked between the two of us, his expression shifting from casual confusion to sharp suspicion. "Mom? Who is this? Do you know him?" Emily opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her hands trembled so violently she had to grip the handle of her cart to keep her balance. "Elijah, this is..." "I'm an old friend." I stepped in, my voice shaking as I took a slow step forward, carefully avoiding the broken glass. "An old friend from Cedar Falls." The moment the word Cedar Falls left my mouth, Elijah's whole posture stiffened. His gray eyes locked onto mine, with a new, intense scrutiny. He looked at my face, then down at my work boots, then back up to my eyes. A dark, heavy realization seemed to dawn behind his expression, his mouth setting into a hard, rigid line. "Cedar Falls," Elijah repeated slowly, his voice dropping an octave. "Right, the town you left before I was born." "Elijah, please," Emily gasped, reaching out to touch his arm, but he pulled back slightly, his eyes never leaving mine. "Excuse me, ma'am. Do you need help cleaning this up?" A young Walmart employee in an orange vest walked into the aisle, holding a mop and a yellow safety sign. The mundane interruption broke the suffocating bubble around us. "No! Yes, I'm so sorry, I dropped it," Emily stammered, her voice frantic, bordering on panic. She grabbed Elijah's arm with a desperate grip. We need to pay for our groceries." "Elijah, grab the cart." "Emily, wait," I called out, taking another step. "Please, it's been 20 years. You can't just walk away again." She paused, her back turned to me. Her shoulders were shaking. When she turned around, her eyes were swimming with unshed tears, filled with a mixture of profound grief and ancient anger. "I think this is a really nice way to just talk naturally together, talk plainly. Let's give it a shot." "I think this is a really nice way to just talk naturally together, talk plainly. Let's give it a shot." I think this is a really nice way to just talk naturally together, talk plainly. Us 21 and broke, I blurted out, uncaring that two shoppers in aisle 3 turned to look at us. Your father told me I would ruin your life. He said if I loved you, I'd step aside so you could go to college. And you believed him, she cried out, her voice cracking. You didn't fight for me. You didn't even come to the station to stop me. I was at the station, I yelled back, 20 years of suppressed pain bursting through my ribs. I was standing behind the ticket counter, watching you board that bus to Chicago. I watched you cry through the window. I had $40 in my bank account and a broken truck. What was I supposed to offer you? Emily froze, her breath catching in her throat. You were there? I watched the bus leave, I said softly, my voice dropping as my eyes drifted to Elijah, who was standing frozen between us. I watched you leave, and I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was letting you have a better life. I looked directly into Elijah's storm-gray eyes. I didn't know she was carrying my son. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the tinny music seemed to fade away. Elijah didn't look surprised. Instead, a grim, painful smile touched the corner of his lips. Reaching into the back pocket of his jeans, he pulled out a worn, dark leather wallet. He didn't pull out money or an ID. From behind a clear plastic sleeve, he carefully extracted a folded piece of yellowed lined paper, held together at the seams by yellowing Scotch tape. She didn't tell me who you were until I turned 18, Elijah said, his voice quiet, carrying the weight of a young man who had grown up in the shadows of missing answers. She kept this in her Bible for 15 years. She never sent it. He held the folded paper out toward me. My hand trembled as I reached out and took it. The paper felt brittle, fragile, smelling faintly of lavender and old dust. I unfolded it with painful care. The handwriting was unmistakably Emily's. The neat, rounded cursive I used to pass notes to during senior year geometry. Daniel, I'm sitting in a diner in Dubuque. The bus broke down, and I have 2 hours before the next one leaves. My father told me you agreed to stay behind. He said you wanted a simple life in Cedar Falls, and that I was a burden. I want to hate you for not stopping me, but I know how proud you are. I'm writing this because I'm terrified. I went to the clinic in Waterloo yesterday morning. I'm pregnant, Daniel. It's yours. If you get this, if you still care, come to Chicago. I'll be at my aunt's house. If you don't come, I'll know my father was right, and I will raise this child alone, and I will never bother you again. I stared at the ink, my vision blurring into a haze of hot tears. I never got this, I sobbed out, crushing the paper against my chest. Emily, I swear on my life, I never got this letter. Your father. He came to my shop the day after you left. He told me you were already in Chicago, that you were happy, and that if I ever tried to contact you, he'd file a restraining order. Emily covered her mouth with both hands, a sob escaping her throat. He intercepted it. I mailed it to your mother's house. My mother died 6 months after you left, I choked out, tears finally spilling down my weathered cheeks. Her mail was forwarded to your father's office while I was working out of town. He destroyed it. The horrible, tragic reality settled over the three of us like a heavy shroud. A jealous, controlling father. 2 stubborn, terrified 21-year-olds. A intercepted letter. 20 years of lost birthdays, lost Christmases, lost first steps, and an empty house in Des Moines filled with silent grief. Emily sank against the handle of her shopping cart, weeping silently. Elijah stood there looking at me. The father who had been a ghost. A silhouette built on rumors and an old, taped-up letter. The anger in his eyes had melted away, replaced by a deep, hollow realization of how much time had been stolen from all of us. I spent 20 years believing I wasn't enough for you, I whispered to Emily, stepping closer, my hands trembling. And I spent the last 3 years in an empty house, thinking I had no family left in this world. Elijah took a long, heavy breath. He looked down at his mother, putting a steady, protective hand on her shoulder, then raised his eyes to meet mine. "We're heading to my apartment down on Grand Avenue," Elijah said, his voice surprisingly grounded, mature beyond his years. "Mom was supposed to cook turkey for just the two of us. But," he glanced at my basket, looking at the solitary frozen turkey breast sitting inside. "That frozen thing looks terrible." A tiny, breathless laugh escaped Emily's lips through her tears. I looked at my son, my chest swelling with a feeling I hadn't felt in 3 agonizing years. Hope. "It is terrible," I admitted, wiping my face with the back of my sleeve. "It's the worst turkey in Des Moines." "Then put it back," Elijah said quietly, a faint, genuine smile breaking through his serious expression. "We've got plenty of food. And I think we've got 20 years of catching up to do." We walked out of that Walmart together, into the cold Iowa air, as the first flakes of the Thanksgiving snowstorm began to fall, softly coating the black asphalt. Lost time can never be bought back. You can't rewrite the letters that were never delivered, or erase the years spent in silence and lonely rooms. But as I walked beside my son, listening to his voice rumble through the cold afternoon air, I realized something fundamental. Thanksgiving isn't about looking back at what was taken from you. It's about having the courage to pull up an extra chair to the table, forgiving the ghosts of the past, and realizing that sometimes second chances don't come in grand cinematic gestures. They start with a broken jar of cranberry sauce on a Thursday morning. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Have you ever had a chance encounter that changed your life forever? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one,